meet you, though. Yeah, I was on, you work at Delta? Yeah, I was on, is this the guy your truck's on? This is from 99 to 10. How are you? Oh, yeah, it's wonderful. I love people. I just had an opportunity to do something different, so I think I had, finished Judge Williams' term. So I had 3.5 terms. Yes. I never did.
Sit down in peace.
Call to order Kent County Levy Court Combined Business and Committee Meeting, Kent County Administrative Complex, 555 Bay Road, Dover, Tuesday, January the 14th. Levy Court Chamber, room 203 at 7 p.m. sharp. We'll have invocations by Mr. Howe, pledge allegiance to our flag, Mr. Buxton, moment of silence for our troops, Mr. Sweeney. All rise.
Heavenly Father, we recognize your presence tonight and ask your blessing and guidance in all of our proceedings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence for the men and women who serve our country. Back in late 2019, when I did this the last time, I thought for sure as I came into the new year for the first business meeting, I was going to have a long list of military to list. Fortunately, I have a short list. Unfortunately, there's anybody on this list. In Afghanistan, in the last couple weeks, we lost Army Special Forces Sergeant First Class Michael Goebel from Washington Township, New Jersey. Miguel Villalon from Aurora, Illinois. In Kenya, a non-fighting country, we lost Army Specialist Henry Mayfield from Hazel Crest, Illinois, as well as a few unnamed consultants to our military. These guys are putting their lives on the lines every day for us, for our freedoms. Please keep their families and them in your thoughts and prayers tonight and always for a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We need a roll call to determine a quorum. Lori.
Mr. Angel,
Present.
Mr. Buxton,
Present.
Mr. Hall,
Here.
Mr. Howell,
Here.
Mr. Pepper,
Here.
Mr. Sweeney,
Here.
Mr. Banta,
Present.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 present.
Thank you, Lori. 7 commissioners present. We do have a quorum. Need a motion on the agenda, but before we do that, I want to amend the agenda. And right after public comments, Mr. Terry Pepper will be making a motion in regard to our county attorney. So that's right after introductions. So with that being said, entertain a motion to adopt the amended agenda.
Motion to adopt as amended.
Second.
Regularly moved and seconded, Mr. Sweeney and Mr. Angel, to approve the amended agenda. Any questions on that motion? Question?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to postpone item number 1 under new business, the potential action item for Resolution 3771 to the first business meeting in February, so that we have time to talk with the public and get a better understanding of the issue, which only got put on the agenda 24 hours ago.
Got a motion? Motion. Requires a second. Fails for lack of a second. Lori, call the roll.
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
7 affirmative votes approves the amended agenda as presented. In the motion on consent agenda 20-1.
Move to approve, Mr. President.
Second.
Second.
Regularly moved and seconded by Mr. Sweeney and Mr. Hall, or Angel. I'm not sure which. Anyway, that was a motion. Any questions? Hearing none, Ms. Tanaka, please call the roll.
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
7 affirmative votes approves consent agenda 20-1. Under presentations, Ms. Tanaka.
Kent County Levy Court Certificate of Recognition, Margot Orlando. On this, the 14th day of January 2020, the Levy Court of Kent County, State of Delaware, does hereby recognize Margaret M. Mangiamelli Orlando as the 2019 Kent County Employee of the Year. The prestigious award, announced at the Employee Holiday Luncheon, recognizes her outstanding dedication, skill, and hard work in the office of the Kent County Sheriff on behalf of the citizens of Kent County.
Thank you, Lori. So, Commissioners and the County Administrator will go down front and we'll present this to Ms. Orlando. Hey, Margot. Long time no see. So before I present this to you, did they ever give you a regular check yet or anything? Or you got that? Okay.
She tried to cash both that one and the big one.
Joe, you hand me those 2 things over there. A couple of things that we need to give you. First of all, this is a monthly token of your appreciation of being Employee of the Month. So that's in here. You can unwrap it now or unwrap it later, but that's in there. But this one really is nice and significant because it says Kent County Employee of the Year 2019, Margot Orlando from the Sheriff's Office. You can hang that with pride in your office or take it home with you and hang it in pride. But we're all so proud of you and the job you do, and you set a tremendous example for the rest of our employees who also are great employees too. Not quite as great as you as being nominated for Employee of the Year. So sincere congratulations. Give her a round of applause. And I should have given her another check for $500, but we're out of money. So we're starting a budget cycle now, and That will be concluded sometime in late April. So if any money is left, you probably won't get anything, but just as long as you know that. So, but again, you do an outstanding job. I'm sure other commissioners want to make comments. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. President. Look, Margot's been up here 3 times in the past 30 days getting some type of award or another, so we've said a lot about her. But our Sheriff's Department is doing a great job. Chris, you guys, and the staff, fantastic. This is the epitome of the staff of the Sheriff's Department. Thank you very much for the job that you do. You represent us very well.
Hope you're not getting tired of seeing us. Every time we turn around, we're giving her some kind of praise. You know, what we're doing again tonight. Congratulations. Everything everybody says is what I agree with. All right.
I think that said it all tonight, but congratulations, well deserved.
Margot, Commissioner Howe said it best. You're getting a lot of praise and it's well deserved, and congratulations on behalf of all your county employees, fellow employees. Just want to extend the hand of congratulations. Thank you.
Margot, you've been around for a very good while. Been a member of the family court family for a very good while. So, and I think I've said before, every department has someone who is the glue that holds everything together and keeps track of everything and has the history. And that's you. So congratulations. And just keep up the great work. I mean, you do a great job representing the county and everything. So we're just proud of you.
Yes, Margot, we definitely miss you in personnel still. So, but we understand when people want to move up and go different places, it gives a better opportunity. And it also is a life experience for changing and learning new things. And I think that you've exemplified that from what you show at the Sheriff's Office. But we do miss you still in personnel.
Congratulations once again. It says a lot about your character and what you do here for the county to have folks give up their evening to come over here and celebrate you once again. It's got to make you feel great. So I appreciate what you do. Thank you very much.
I just want to say how honored I am, and I know my dad will be very proud of me.
She is the glue that holds our office together, and we love her.
I work with wonderful people. Wonderful, sir.
Nicely done.
Stand up, give her another round of applause. Next item on the agenda will be introductions. Mr. Coelho.
Good evening, Commissioners. We have 2 of the 3 employees here tonight to be introduced. The first will be introduced by Recorder of Deeds Betty Lou McKenna, and she'll be followed by the Director of Planning Services, Sarah Kiefer. Recorder.
Good evening. Commissioners, I present to you my new deputy. Her name is Vanessa, and I'll read this little thing that Alan wrote. Vanessa L. Lockman was appointed December the 17th, 2019, as the Deputy Recorder of Deeds. She previously worked for the Delaware State Police, holding positions within the Training Academy and Human Resources Department for over 37 years. Most recently, Vanessa worked as a teller at the Delaware State Police Federal Credit Union. Vanessa resides in Commissioner Angel's and Pepper's district. Ladies and gentlemen, Vanessa, you want to say anything?
I'm honored to be here. So far, I'm liking the job. I'm learning a lot, and I'm learning something every day. I appreciate the opportunity to work for the county.
Certainly welcome you aboard. Mr. Angel, that's your district.
Thank you. I'm sure Mr. Pepper has something too, since it is. But Vanessa, welcome. It's been a long time since I had somebody add it to the agenda here, so welcome aboard. Anything I can do, please don't hesitate to call me.
Vanessa, welcome to the Levy Court family. I wish you another long career, but here working for the county. Good luck.
Mr. Sweeney.
Vanessa, I know you've only been here for a short time, but last night at a meeting, the Recorder of Deeds made some very nice comments about you, set the bar very high, but she's very, very appreciative and thankful of the work that you're doing already. So as long as you keep the attitude that you're going to learn something new every day, you're in good shape. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. It's my pleasure to introduce Tim Hudson. He joined us December 30th as a code enforcement officer. He comes to us with experience in a number of trades, but more importantly, a great deal of experience in customer service. He's hit the ground running. We are incredibly pleased to have him on board. Tim resides in Commissioners Buxton's and Pepper's districts. Tim?
How's everyone? Very excited to start a career with Kent County Levy Court, especially the opportunity to make a difference in the community that I was born and raised in. Thank you very much.
Welcome aboard, Tim. Mr. Buxton, that's your district.
You're speaking to him a few moments ago, and my understanding is I believe he's still in my district. Well, check it out. It might be in Felton there, Commissioner Howe. Anyway, welcome aboard. Glad to have you.
Mr. Pepper.
Tim, welcome to the family. Wish you have a great long career here with the county, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. There are no public hearings, but Mr. Pepper, is your opportunity to make a presentation for the county attorney.
Yes, Mr. President. Due to the untimely death of Mr. William Bill Pepper, came an opening for the county attorney for Levy Court, and I'm pleased to make a motion to appoint Craig T. Eliason of the law firm of Spinnanger and Rodriguez as the Levy Court attorney. This will be effective immediately upon the passage of this motion.
Second the motion.
Ready to move to say that Craig Eliason be appointed as a county attorney. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, Ms. Tanaka, please call the roll.
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton?
Not voting.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
I've known Doc for 5 years. Good friend. Welcome aboard. My vote's yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 6 yeas, 1 not voting.
Thank you, Lori. 6 affirmative votes. Now appoints Mr. Craig Eliason to the county attorney. May take your seat, sir. So at this juncture of the meeting, we'll recess to committee meetings, call it to order, and determine a quorum, and 7 commissioners and the county administrator are present. First item on the agenda under committee is Mr. Angel.
Thank you. Mr. Bettermage?
Thank you, Commissioner Angel. Before you this evening is Resolution 3771, and it's a resolution requesting support of Wesley College through the Delaware Higher Education Economic Development Investment Fund, which is a fund that was established by the General Assembly a few years ago and continues to be funded in the current year. Commissioner Angel, unless you would like this entire resolution read into the record, I will forgo that and just summarize by saying that along with the City of Dover, who passed a similar resolution last night, this resolution is intended to express the desire of Levy Court with respect to supporting Wesley College in its pursuit of funding through this funding mechanism at the state of Delaware, the Higher Education Economic Development Investment Grant or Fund. And I know we have some representatives here. President Clark from Wesley College is present this evening, and I did see Representative Lynn come in a little bit ago, and I know that Representative Lynn's been an advocate for Wesley College and particularly this resolution. So, Commissioner Angel, unless you want it read into the record verbatim, I will turn the floor back to you at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we read it into record, does any commissioner have any? Commissioner Sweeney and Commissioner Buxton.
Thanks, Commissioner Angel. So when I found out about this resolution and the possibility of it coming before Levy Court, I may have had some angst about that based on my past history with Wesley, and I'm not ashamed to say that. However, after discussions with Mr. Clark, Bob, thank you very much for your frank discussion with me today. Discussion with Bill Strickland, who is the chair of the Board of Trustees. The explanation and description of Wesley and what they are doing for our community, what they plan to do for our community, what they have done for our community for almost nearly 150 years now, is something we don't want to lose. They are a part of the fabric of the city of Dover, part of the fabric of Kent County. And I think we recognize that in this resolution, so I'm in favor of it.
So if I understand where we are, we're sitting at a table out front having a conversation, correct? And first I learned that this was on Friday evening, a casual conversation that I received a phone call from President Banna. That's okay, that's not a bad thing. But it's the purpose of having a conversation tonight, because like Mr. Hall, I'm not fully aware of what's going on. I know that what I need to be sold on is the importance of Wesley College, its significant impact in the city of Dover as well as the county. I don't need to be sold on the fact that the state has a role to play. They've shown that through this funding, as well as the past history of supporting our higher levels of education. So I'm in favor of that. What I don't know about, and what's not a secret, although it's not easy to say, is I'm not in favor of good money after bad. My understanding is that the state has requested some sort of a plan before they're willing to spend the money. My understanding is that I'm concerned that we're telling the state that you've got money, $3.2 million, and we want you to give it to them right now. So that's what I'm concerned about. I support a resolution. I want a resolution to sign that says that I support Wesley College. If it was my money, I could tell you whether or not I support giving it to him. But I don't understand the funding and the finances. I really don't. So while I'm not saying that I'm opposed to signing this, I'd like to have a better understanding of what it is that I'm asking the state to do. If it's to tell the state that I support Wesley College, heck yes. If it's that I support telling the state that they have this fund, and I really hope that they give it a serious consideration, yes. But I'm not in favor of telling them that I understand what $3.2 million is and that I want them to give that to them, because I don't know. That's where I am right now. Mr. Hall, I was not prepared to listen to I didn't know what you were asking about 10 minutes ago. So that caught me by surprise. It is what it is, though. But that's what we're here for, right? Table discussion like we were at a kitchen table. So if there's any discussion, I'd love to hear it.
Commissioner Hall.
Thanks, Mr. Ranger. Similarly, both of my older children are graduates of Wesley College, and its value to the community, the economic impact, all of that, I fully understand. Some of my concern is a process error or a process concern, I guess, in that I woke up this morning, it was the first time I saw this resolution. Haven't had a chance to reach out to see, what the public sentiment is. I understand that this is tied to a plan, but I haven't seen a plan. So I think I'd feel better if we had some data, if we understood what the plan was, that the money was there to support. And I don't want to say it's an empty gesture to say that we support Wesley College. Obviously we do. I don't know if we need a resolution for that. So if we're going to look at a resolution on behalf of 180,000 county residents to encourage the General Assembly to use this funds in support of the college without seeing a plan or having any more background information than we have, then I will not vote to move this forward to new business tonight. So that's where I'm at.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Sweeney again?
Thanks. Mr. Pettit-Monge, what, Counselor, what are the options if a levy court, a commissioner, a single or multiple commissioners decide they don't want to sign a resolution that has 8 names on it? What happens?
I'll begin, and if I miss anything. The resolution, if it moves out of committee, would then be subject to vote. And to pass, it would need 4 votes. If it gets 4 votes, then presumably those 4 commissioners would sign it, and those who did not wish to sign it do not sign it. And that's basically...
I agree. I mean, the supporters would sign it. If there are sufficient supporters, then it would pass and become a resolution.
Thank you.
Commissioner Buxton.
Of any kind of surprise. I'm not trying to grandstand. There's no press here, and that's perfectly fine with me. And it would do me no good to have a resolution sent over that lacks my name showing support to Wesley College. But we're having a conversation. Some of you had the luxury of having this conversation in great details. I have not. But when I was asked, I did express to the county administrator and president that I want to show support. I don't want to show anything that specifically says I support $3.2 million. So that is the question. Maybe that's a question that we need to ask Representative Lynn or something along those lines if he wants to join us, because that's what I want. I want a resolution that expresses support but doesn't try to tell the state, specifically financially, what we want them to do. I don't need a plan, although Commissioner Hall and I can be somewhat different here. I don't need them to send me a plan of how they're going to deal with Wesley. I think that's their role. Again, I just don't want a conflicting message sent that says, this is all about $3.2 million and we're demanding that you release it. That's all I'm concerned with. It's trivial, but it matters to me. So I guess that's what I'm asking. In here, does it indicate that? Mr. Pettit-Monge.
If I could respond to that in this way. First of all, it does not state any specific amount. And what the legislation, as I understand it and as I've read it, has done, and this is in the bond bill that was passed in June. There was an appropriation of $20 million into this fund for the current year. And there's a creation of an application process for higher institutions of higher learning to seek some of that funding for purposes. The language says that the purpose is to support the programs of higher education and the institutions thereof, and to continue to provide access to high education opportunities in the state and for state residents. And the application for funding shall be submitted to a committee that is formed that reviews these requests. And then they make decisions on awards. So the resolution does not express any particular amount. I wasn't aware of any particular amount. But what it does say is that we would encourage the General Assembly, the Levy Court would encourage the General Assembly to continue investment in and in support of Wesley College in accordance with the purposes and intent of that fund. And part of the legislation also says that the committee, if it chooses, can require any institution receiving the funds to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the committee on how the money is to be used and what purposes. And the second part of our resolution here, item 2, says that the committee of the state of Delaware would enter into a memorandum, or should enter into a memorandum of understanding or agreement with Wesley College that sets forth a detailed plan of action as envisioned by the legislation. And so that's the extent of where we went with this. Hopefully that clarifies some things. Thank you.
President Bannon?
Well, I don't want to reiterate what the county administrator just said, but I was going to point out to Mr. Buxton, item number 2, that refers to the memorandum of agreement with Wesley College that set forth a detailed plan of action. So that might be what he was looking for. I'm not sure, but anyway, good point. Thank you, Mr. Pettibosh. Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney?
Thanks, Commissioner Angel. So Mr. Clark and Mr. Lynn's names have both been mentioned in vain, as opposed to waiting till public comments, which is, I was wondering if we could bring them down.
I'll do that. I want to get the commissioner's discussion first.
Okay.
Mr. Buxton?
So I appreciate the conversation. It's vitally important to me. It matters. So as I understand it, it'll go through, and certainly public comments can express that, so that it don't need to be sold further. I think that my questions or concerns have been fairly answered, especially given the fact that it appears it's going to go to a committee, this resolution, with no specific requirement or anything other than you have this fund, you set the fund up, you've accessed it before. You know, within reason, we think it makes sense, but it's certainly your call. That's the impression that I have. That's why I'll be in support of this end. So thank you for your time.
The commission, just to go on, administration-wise is under. I don't have a problem signing this resolution as it's stated because there's no amount going to it. So there is a state law that they put in place for this amount of money. There's a process, as everybody now knows. So Mr. Pettibosh made me aware of this yesterday, and in the resolution he said it would be here tonight. So I think we're all on the same page of that. There was nothing predetermined as far as what was going on as of Friday till now. As a chair of the administration, believe me, if I had known on Friday, you all would have known. But Mr. Pettibosh had his homework to do, and he did it well. So having said that, I'd like to, if you all don't mind, invite Representative Lynn and Mr. Clark to come forth.
Gentlemen, thank you for having us. If you'd like, I can give some background which perhaps alleviates some of the concerns.
Mr. Lynn, can you pull your mic up so we can hear you, please?
Yes, is that better? Thank you, gentlemen. Sean Lynn, 282 Troon Road, 31st District Representative. Thank you for the opportunity to address this body this evening. I greatly appreciate it. I'm here on a matter of great importance, and that is Wesley College. As you know, Wesley College employs about 300 Kent County individuals. That's 300 jobs directly attributable to Kent County. The University of Delaware did an economic impact study in 2016, which concluded that Wesley College contributes about $80 million, it's probably around $89 million, to the local Kent County economy, and overall about $106 million to the state of Delaware. And make no mistake about it, that the reason why we're here is because Wesley College is in trouble. And frankly, and in candor, we need your help. Right now, you're facing the potential loss of an entity that not only employs 300 people, but contributes $89 million to the local economy. I don't believe that that's a loss that we can suffer. Moreover, it is situated right in the heart of the city of Dover, and occupies 50 acres and 19 buildings in the heart of downtown Dover. I don't need to imagine, nor hopefully will live to see the day that we see an empty college campus sitting in the middle of downtown Dover. I think that the damage to the local area would be incalculable, not only to the efforts that we've made to restore downtown Dover, but also to the number of neighborhoods, diverse and varied neighborhoods that straddle that block between State Street and Governor's Avenue. I think that the damage to the integrity of those neighborhoods we would not recover from. The reality is this, in Section 29 of the bond bill, we were able to secure what had been $11 million in funding for the Higher Education Economic Development Incentive Fund. We were able to raise that number from $11 million to $20 million in this year's bond bill. But most importantly, we were able to open up that source of funding to other entities besides the listed entities that have historically been in Section 29 of the bond bill, and those specifically anticipated the inclusion of Wesley College. I've heard some concerns about opening up this funding to Wesley College, the first being is that it's a private entity. Well, I would remind you that the University of Delaware is a privately chartered institution, and the state of Delaware gives the University of Delaware more than $130 million annually. Moreover, the University of Delaware is not subject to FOIA. So you can't, for example, file a FOIA request and ask to see the books and records of the University of Delaware. And moreover, every single year when a bill has been proposed which would subject the University of Delaware to FOIA, they've fought it. So it is not novel that state dollars would go to fund private entities. You'll also recall that the state of Delaware routinely gives money to other private entities such as DuPont or AstraZeneca or any other major corporation when faced with economic strife and adversity, most recently being the Delaware Competes Act 2 years ago, an initiative by Governor Carney. So the idea of giving money to a private entity is not new. What we have here, however, is something that is so integral, something that is so part of the fabric and the tapestry that is Kent County and the city of Dover that I don't think we recover if we lose it. I think Commissioner Buxton's point was excellent, and he kind of laid out three criteria. Sir, I think it's the middle one, that you're simply asking, it's an ask. It's, dear General Assembly, this is important to us. We would ask that you release the funds to the Wesley College. Time is of the essence. So while I appreciate Commissioner Hall, your reluctance to act tonight, time is of the essence. Your Levy Court president will, I'm sure, elucidate you that I called him frantically right before Christmas with this issue when we were initially kind of struggling with the fact that it appeared at that juncture that the funds were not going to be released. So time is of the essence. We need help and we need it now. I can't be more blunt or more candid than that. As to the specifics of the plan, Wesley College has been working with both the Secretary of State, Jeff Bullock, and also with Mike Jackson, who is the finance director for the state of Delaware. He is intimately engaged in the plan, which I think that President Clark can probably speak to better than I can. I'd also just lastly like to stress one thing, that this isn't a new ask of funds, that Wesley went in initially and asked for the totality of funds that they needed to enable and enact their plan. It was the committee's decision to only release a portion and thus subject them to a condition that they had to come back and ask for the release. So please don't think that this is an ask for a release of additional funds. This is simply the continuation of that which has already been asked. I'm happy to answer whatever other and further questions you may have. President Clark is here with me to go into more detail about perhaps some of the finer details of the issue.
Thank you, Representative Lynn. President Banta, Vice President Pepper, council members, I truly appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and I'm very appreciative of the support that not only you're willing to consider and talk, but what the community has as well. If you have a few minutes, I can run you through a quick where we were, where we're at, and kind of looking forward into the future. But before I do that, I'd also like to thank you for the way you recognize our servicemen and women. I didn't come up through higher education. I spent 32 years in the submarine force. And as we speak, my oldest son is in Navy Special Forces. Thank God I got a chance to see him and my granddaughter over the holidays for a few years before his call came, and he's out doing training. And my youngest son is he's in surface forces. And so the way this community embraces the military, and not just through speak, but through actions, is very humbling. And Commissioner Hall, knowing that you have 2 grads of Wesley College, besides the offer I'm going to give to every commissioner to sit down with you and go into much more detail, I'd be very interested in both your grad's perspective and yours as a parent of things we can do better. So where are we at right now, and how do we get here? I knew eyes wide open what I was getting into. In fact, I think one of the best quotes I've seen over the last year or so is in the press talking about, is everybody aware of the significant financial challenges at Wesley College? And Councilman Bill Hare said, oh, absolutely, for about the last 25 to 30 years. And again, new eyes wide open coming in. But I believe in the possibilities of change that our college provides the young men and women of Delaware, life-changing opportunities. And I knew it wouldn't have been easy. But again, nothing worthwhile is. So as I came in, and when I got here, before getting in front of the county, before getting in front of the city, before getting in front of my college and saying, okay, this is the plan, this is the vision, how short-sighted of me would it have been to do that until I got a real understanding of the collective vision of the college, the community, and the area, and where we could really take things. So I waited about 6 months before the quote-unquote unveiling so I could get a feel for that. And I've been here 4.5 years now. And after about 1.5 years, and I tell my folks this all the time, higher education is not a business, it's a calling, but there's business-like tendencies that we need to understand and appreciate. It was crystal clear to me that the business model in higher education had to fundamentally change. And what do I mean by that? No one can do everything, but everyone can do something. And just like we see in healthcare, like we see in high-tech, collaboration, finding the positives that one have and plugging that into maybe the shortfalls that another have. And so one of the things that we looked at very carefully was what are some efficiencies that we could put together. And one of the things I started right off the bat is as I got to understand the Delaware legislative capabilities and support was there's mechanisms in the state to help with that. But the narrative that I needed to convince folks was it's not important in terms of how you're branded, but more importantly, the return on investment that you're providing the people we serve, our future, the young men and women, and the city, the county, and the state we serve. And so that started the journey to kind of get where we are today. And this isn't the first time that I've gone to the state. And I, just like when I reach out to businesses, just when I go to alums, just when I go to my board members, I look at it in terms of investment. So going into this cycle, there were some things in terms of investment that I thought would be very beneficial, not just for the college, but for our area and moving all of us forward. And the ask that was made of the state and the plan put together wasn't a, here's the amount of money that I need. It was more, here's what we've done. And our budget is fairly de minimis compared to other schools our size, but here's the specific savings that we've been able to do internally. Here's how we started to find other revenue streams that not only supported the college, but supported some of the initiatives in the community, Boys and Girls State, Hobie, our local police force, the Air Force Base. So again, joint partnerships that benefit not just an institution, but a community. And then also, where did we need to go? And short term, we could continue to do a lot of Band-Aid fixes, intermediary kind of partnerships, which we continue to do. In fact, we just signed one with Rowan University, where now we have an engineering track for Delawareans, where if you come to Wesley in 3 years, you get a Bachelor of Science, you go up to Rowan for 1 year, and my background's in engineering. It's kind of a lot of bridge courses, and if you keep the grades, you're admitted directly into their chemical engineering master's program. But again, that's just onesie twosies. So with this momentum that we've had, we started to attract a lot of interest. Our healthcare programs, as you all know, top in the state. Masters of Occupational Therapy, the only one in the region. And this goes to the investment I'm asking for, and here's the return. Over 50% of my students, close to 55%, are Delawareans. Over 80% of my graduates stay here in Delaware and become part of our fabric. And so I looked at some of the things that we have to do at Wesley because we don't have that strong financial base, nor have we ever, that most other schools have, but we still want to provide these life-changing opportunities. With over half of our student body being Delawareans, and a lot of those young men and women don't have the means to go on to higher education, we did not want to be that impediment. So out of our operational funds, we provided the funds to close that gap for the families. So one of the asks was, here's my need in this certain area. I'm asking for this. And it was less than half that we put out every year to the students of Delaware. So in other words, the money was going right back to Delaware. The other thing, that plan I committed to is, if you invest into me, I will continue moving forward to find that partner out there that'll expand the educational opportunity for our city and state, to provide some more jobs, to put Wesley not only on a solid footing, but on a growth footing. And in less than 6 months, I've signed agreements with 2 institutions. And by the end of this month, we will more than likely, and I use that term because people have asked, well, does that mean 100% it's going to happen? Nothing's 100%. But the experts I have working on this is the most efficient, most effective, and the farthest along, especially in terms of higher education, than any type of partnership they have ever seen. And I'm pretty confident because one of the institution's leadership team, they'll be making their second visit to Wesley. We've already started talking in terms of how we're going to schedule to get on the accreditors' docket in the spring. You don't spend that money, you don't do those talks unless there's a serious deal on the table, and there is. How's that going to change who we are? Not at all. And that's the beauty of it. Because they recognize the importance of a residential education at a small institution. They recognize the importance that not everybody can process information to better their lives in a large arena or a large classroom. They might need that intimate setting. They recognize the fact, quite frankly, that a lot of our students are minority students or students that are underprepared, and they need that extra attention. But then they also recognize, just like an artist looks at clay, is once they get into our system, it goes from this piece of clay to a masterpiece. And in our case, it goes from a young man or young woman who might not have that confidence of understanding of what they want to do, but if they stay the course, they graduate, they get placed, and again, over 80% become a fabric of who we are. And so that's where we're at. And so the reason you just heard of this weekend through our representatives is because up until this point, things have been moving along. You know, what's the difference between in June when the bond bill was passed and today? The only difference is the plan that we put in place back then, we've not only met but exceeded the metrics that I called out. Oh, and that's another important thing. I just didn't say, here's the money I need, here's where we're at, here's where we're going. I also said, here's how to grade me. Here's the metrics I commit to. I commit to continuing educating over 40% Delawareans. I commit to make sure that X% of our graduates stay here. I commit to make sure that we maintain the highest standards in our healthcare, in our education, in our STEM fields. STEM, for example, 100% placement, 100% retention. So the plan as it unfolded wasn't just in terms of here's my needs. It showed here's what we've been doing. Here's the sacrifices we've been making. Here's the needs we still have, but we're only asking from you this investment, and I'll still continue to work with other entities, foundations, to get the rest, because at the end of the day, I truly believe it's a community solution, because we're dealing with our future, these young men and women. So that's the only difference. We've eclipsed that. I would welcome the opportunity to sit down with each and every one of you. We can get into more detail. We can break out the spreadsheets. We can break out the projected budgets. We can project the what ifs. Again, you can't help but be who you are. I come from the nuclear submarine force. Failure is not an option. And putting all your eggs in one basket isn't either. And so when you make a plan, there's got to be multiple branch and sequels. Because if plan A doesn't work, and usually it won't, what's plan B? What are your off-ramps? How do you bring in other things to support that, to move towards the goal that collectively we see that is important? And so that's kind of a long, drawn-out Reader's Digest version of where we are, where we were, and still where we need to go. But I'll tell you right now, next week, one of these institutions' leadership teams coming back, spoke with their president the other day. The discussion is now moving from a letter of intent to a definitive agreement. And again, nothing's 100%, but I see a lot of positive in the future, just like I see a lot of positive when I got here. And I'll just end with this. When I got here, I looked around, and what I saw in Dover, Delaware was Charleston, South Carolina 30 years ago. That's where my first submarine was. And for those of you that are familiar with that area, 30 years ago, Charleston was, struggling. College of Charleston, struggling. Some of the city areas, struggling. And then you had a historic city, you had a healthcare entity, and you had an educational entity said, you know what? We can transform our community. Collectively, one team, one fight, one family, we could turn it around. Wesley College, Bay Health, historic capital, the first state in the union. We can and we will change this. We are, and we will continue to make strides in the forward. And I can tell you this, with every breath I have, with every waking moment, I will not stop until there is not only a positive track for this college, but more importantly, positive opportunities for the young men and women we serve, our future. So thank you again for your time. I welcome the opportunity to sit down and we can get into the numbers and more, but that's the Reader's Digest version, Mr. President, if that answers questions you may have.
Commissioner Sweeney and President Banner.
Thanks, Commissioner Angel. First of all, President Clark, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
It's very much appreciated. Hopefully I'm never reading your name up here. Second of all, I do have, as I said, I have a history with Wesley College. I have some blood in some of the courtyards that they built. I was there when they did both courtyards. I was there when we installed Wi-Fi throughout the entire campus. And I guarantee you there's some blood in the ceilings that I left there because of installing that. Because of that, every time Wesley was mentioned, whether it was in the sports pages, opinion pages, front pages, no matter what newspaper, local newspaper, I also follow the Whetstone and follow all the articles that students are writing because there's some measure of fact.
Sure.
But given all that, I still have the ability to look past the chip on the shoulder that I gained 5 years ago and realize that Wesley College is a great place. And
I appreciate that. And you brought up one thing that's very important. And if I could, Mr. President, just a moment comment. There has been a lot of things in the press. And questions come to me, well, if you had this plan, why didn't you go to the press and tell them about it? Because I'm also very cognizant of the fact that there's a lot of people in our community that are very supportive. And I'm not going to get in, and everybody does things differently. I don't believe in the press and in terms of social media of trying to sway uninformed opinions. I believe in working with those individuals. So just like Representative Lynn said, there's been questions about, well, what do they need now? What do they need now? We're just following our course. So I tend to, in the press, be very positive, and I thank everybody for their support. We're moving in a very positive direction. The 50-80-80, I remind folks, the fact that don't tag us as how we're labeled, but the return we provide to our community, and then working with leadership, working with businesses. Then we get down and say, here's the real story. Here's the narrative. Maybe there was a misstep. Can I come clarify that for you? And so, as you kind of alluded to, it's all over the map in terms of the press. And quite frankly, one of them is very interesting because if you really read it carefully, it's the exact same quotes that have been used in 3 different articles that started back in March when the process happened. And so it's a narrative that kind of, if you just read it at face value, you'd think, oh my gosh, more. Same exact quotes, same exact people. So if it's truly a misstep and I need to step in, I will, but I found in my background dealing, sometimes it's best that if there's a misstep, you just let it do its course and then work with the people you need to work with to make sure that the decision makers have an informed and thorough understanding of the situation and work that way. But thank you.
Mr. Buxton.
Just going to compliment you. Great speech. I am surprised that the governor or others within the General Assembly, have they heard that speech? And it's not work because it was pretty daggone good. And I mean this sincerely. It wasn't a full of sound and fury signifying nothing. It was legit. It hit on all the points. So what's the holdup? What is the
we continue to work with the legislators and again, very appreciative of their support. And at the end of the day, I think continued community engagement, continued discussions, unwrapping sometimes the fog of misunderstanding will see the day. And also Commissioner Buxton, I'm a big believer, and there's a difference between speaking and communicating, and whether it's coming before a commission like this, or a lot of times when I do public presentations, everybody has to do it their own way. I'm not a big believer in writing. I try to highlight some key points I want to talk, and then look people in the eye. And because I could speak, whether it's word, whether it's on a presentation, and a few of you may hear it, but if we communicate, more people will hear it, and then more importantly, there will be an understanding, and from that understanding, change. And that's exactly what we continue to try to do at the state level. And we've got support, and it's just staying the course.
And with this one, and you correctly pointed out that I've never given a speech. That's because I've never read one. But I've given a lot of talks, and that's exactly what you did. Enough with that. Appreciate it.
Mr. Hall.
Thanks, Commissioner Angel. I appreciate your service. I really appreciate yourself and Representative Lynn being here tonight, because I hadn't heard that you were going to be here, and this is good, so we could talk about this. Some of the things that I'm hung up on is your offer to look, to go through the data, look at the spreadsheets and all this look at the information, which I would love to do because I'm a data kind of guy. But now I'm being asked to vote on this tonight. So, and that's the other thing I don't understand is if the funds have been approved, what we do or don't do tonight, I don't understand, are we the trigger? If we don't vote on this tonight, the funds aren't released. In terms of time, because if there's an imminent agreement that would give us a different financial picture of the future of Wesley College, and that's coming in weeks or a month, could we not wait to have a better understanding of what that partnership is and what the financial picture is changing to? Because if we're asking this committee for a Band-Aid for a year or 2 years worth of carry through until the partnership's formed and you see how that's looking, that's sort of one thing. But this is open-ended as far as I can tell. I mean, even that hasn't really been explained.
No, and I'll say this, because I was the same way. This popped up and I'm reading, going, okay, this looks good. The way I understand it, and I think our county administrator articulated this well, this is nothing more and nothing less than this commission, this body saying, you know what, we're supportive of Wesley and what they've meant in the community. This has no direct ties to, hey, we want you to give this to Wesley, or we want you to do this. This is basically, we support Wesley and let the process work itself through. And so that's how I see this. The offer to sit down with each one of you and go into detail, that's not just on this matter, that's just on anything Wesley, because I think it's very important, again, as we deal in an age where information is as quick as somebody typing something in and hitting enter before there's a full understanding of the information they're sending out there, better to have leadership as informed as possible. And again, I saw some people's eyes open when I said, yeah, I'll open the books. Absolutely. And again, I'll go into your minds. Well, wait a minute, you're a public or private. Again, that it's not who we're tagged, it's what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do is provide the best life-changing educational opportunities to the young men and women we serve. And opening our books, hey, I'm open kimono about that. It's challenge. In fact, I welcome it, because just like you, I'm very data-driven, but I'm also predictive analysis, and we're humans, and you can find some trends. And the one thing that you'll see when you open the books is, reflecting back to Bill Hare's comment, wow, you're still able to do what you are able to do today. And that's another thing. Before I went to the state, even though these programs were there, it wasn't like I didn't exhaust all possible means. And I don't want to carry this on too long because you've got a lot of more important business. But to give you a perfect example, 2 years ago, one of our residence halls, Carpenter Hall, might be very familiar with that. The keyword tricky phrase, well, we renovated Carpenter Hall. No, we didn't. The HVAC system broke. And engineering background, the way that the campus was built many years ago is just beyond one's comprehension. Just really rough and dirty. You got piping systems that deal with water. So most systems, you have cross connects, you have isolations, you have flushing. Carpenter Hall had one valve, in and out. So if you had a leak, you put down everything. So finally, it died. Did I have the money to fix it? Nope. Very easy to get to know. But again, when you're dealing with young men and young women in their future, you got to find a way to get yes. So what did we do? Started knocking on a bunch of foundations' doors, pieced some monies together. We found that there was energy efficiency to have, so we went in through DENREC. We had a lot of quotes on this job, and it was, well, to redo everything, it's going to take about 9 months and several $1 million. I didn't have that, and I didn't have the time. So then I looked at my maintenance folks. I said, you know what? And myself, we could be a demo team. So we were. So the only people we actually hired in were the licensure folks, the electricians and stuff, you had to be there. But roll up your sleeves, put some paint, you pull some stuff on. So we took this several $1 million quoted job, 9 months quoted job, did it in 3 months for under $300,000. Partnering with some local businesses who had some surplus, redefining contracts, getting folks who were part of the Wesley College on the problem and fixing it. Not sexy, didn't get a lot of publicity. We did what we needed to do to serve our students. And so as I then go out to businesses, as I go out to alumni, and in this case, as I go out to our state for investment, it's not without showing, here's all the things we've done. Here's all the things we know we need to continue to do. But as I mentioned already, and many of you, especially Joe, I mean, he's about as Wolverine as it gets. Time is not a friend. And we need some solutions now. And we have this potential partner just sitting there. Now, using the funds, as Representative Lynn said, that's appropriated to protect jobs, to grow the economy. We just need a little bit of time for here to here to get this thing closed. Again, passed in June, year's not even half over. What's the difference? We've exceeded the expectations in 6 months. We just need a little bit more investment to allow us to do this, and then it'll be changing for the school and the community. If that somehow answered your point. So this tonight is purely, the way I understand it, is again, other members of the community going, you know what? We believe in Wesley. We support what they do. Not saying, hey, we want you to do this, 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 but we support, and they're working through some things, and let the system work and let the process work. Separate to that, I'll sit down with any of you. Any questions you have at Wesley, any updates you need, we'll go through the whole thing.
Mr. Howell?
Thank you. Perhaps this has been covered. I need to untangle something in my head here. The money that we're talking about has been appropriated as of last year, right? All right. Well, what is blocking you from getting the money? I mean, I heard there was a vote of 5 individuals, I think. 3 were against, 2 were for, 2 were for. I mean, who, was that a committee? Was it a board?
And if you don't mind, and then I'll turn it over to Representative Lynn, because I don't want to come out of my lane, but I'll just offer this again. It's a process. And if people have questions, I don't have an issue with that, because it resides right here to go back, even though support was, and now there might be some questions. That's the process that's in place there. We have support. We have folks that have questions. That's where the responsibility lies here to go back in and reiterate, here's where we're at, here's where we need to go. Here's what the investment was, here's the return to date, and here's the projected return going further. And that's back to what we're talking about with Commissioner Buxton. That's removing this cloud of question. That's removing the cloud of information and rebaselining everybody.
I'm trying to narrow it down, though. Who specifically is blocking this?
I don't want to get into the who, because again, they could eventually be supporters again, and we're working vigorously with them right now. To me, that's a secondary issue, because at the end of the day, I wouldn't use the word blocking. I would say they want reaffirmation. They've got some questions, and we'll answer them. And with that, I'll turn that over to you, Sean.
So it may not surprise you that here in Kent County, we do a lot with not necessarily a lot of money. How frank and how candid do you want me to be? The reality of it is that Kent County is kind of the redheaded stepchild of Delaware. We don't get the lion's share of the state's resources or assets. We're trying to. But to a lot of people, the fate of the city of Dover or Kent County isn't necessarily high on their priority list. We're working to fix it. And I think this probably dovetails more into Commissioner Hall's question, is why are we here? And that's because the question has been asked multiple times. Where is the city of Dover in all of this? Where is Kent County in all of this? I don't think that the state necessarily understands that the budget constraints of the county preclude you from writing a check for $3 million to Wesley College. And I don't think that they understand necessarily that the city of Dover is precluded from writing a check in that amount. I don't know if there's any more of those Ron Smith rainy day accounts laying around, but we could sure use one now. So that's simply the reality of it is that the question has been asked, where is Levy Court? Where is the city of Dover? And, we need your support.
Yeah, I understand that, but what I'm trying to get out of you is just simply to find out, well, let's put it in military terms. Who exactly is the enemy? Who are we supposed to be shooting at? Somebody is obstructing this money that's been appropriated. We don't even know who.
And I'm happy to have that conversation with you, Commissioner. I don't think
you want to have it in private.
I don't think it's an appropriate conversation to have on the record because, like my colleague said, it's very likely that these people, once we kind of make our argument, that they'll turn their positions around. But I don't think it's the correct venue within which to have that conversation.
See, I don't think that way. I'm not saying I won't vote for it, but I mean, it's just like kind of I don't know. I mean, is this a committee? Is it a board? Is it just a bunch of grouchy old legislators? Who are we talking about that's getting in the way of this?
And again, I'd be happy to have that conversation with you, sir.
When do you want to do that?
If you want to take a recess, we can talk right now.
We got other things to do, but you can catch up with me. All right.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Just one, Representative Lynn, if you could hold off to after we're done, I'd like to speak to you too after the meeting.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And then President Clark, being from a military family and moving 18 times in 21 years, I know how to pack well, and I know how to talk to people. But one thing that I was brought up on, no guts, no glory, is the military saying in my family. And that's what I was brought up on. So appreciate your guts. Hope the glory comes forth with the state. So, gentlemen, anybody else?
Thank you for having us, gentlemen. We genuinely appreciate the opportunity to come before
Appreciate
you.
your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. President, should I read the resolution in the record then, or?
The county administrator pretty well emancipated the content of what it says. If you feel comfortable in doing that.
I'm sorry? Well, yeah, I'm hoping to. Okay. Move this forward to the business meeting then. 5-2. 6-1. Okay. move it to the business meeting. This is now open for public comments. Anybody want to come and speak on this item? Come down to the podium. Anybody want to move forth to speak on this, sir? Come to the podium. No? Okay. Mr. President, back to you, sir.
Are we open for new business or what?
Yes, I just asked if you want to speak on this item.
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit hard to hear it.
Okay.
On this particular item only. On this item only.
You have your name, sir?
Yeah, my name is Julian McCoy, and I live at 400 Cam Fortune Way in Breeders' Crown in Harrington. Why I'm here tonight, I have talked with Mr. Howe about 3 different times over the last 3 months, but now that I've looked at the...
Sir, does this have to do with what we just spoke about the college?
Oh, no, I thought you were talking about the new business.
I appreciate you coming forth, but this is on that
All right,
item only.
thanks.
Thank you. Just hold off to the end, sir. All right, Mr. President, back to you, sir.
So we move this to the business session, correct? We're going to adjourn the committee meeting, reconvene the business meeting under old business. There is nothing under new business. Mr. Angel.
Thank you. Any questions on what we just spoke about? Ms. Pedmaj?
No question here, but at this moment, Commissioner Angel, it would be best if you enter in a motion with respect to Resolution 3771.
Be doing that, sir. Okay, I move to approve Resolution 3771, a resolution requesting support of Wesley College to the Delaware Higher Education Economic Development Investment Fund.
Second motion. Second motion.
Regular moved and seconded, Mr. Angel, Mr. Pepper, and Mr. Sweeney to approve Resolution 3771. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, Ms. Tanaka, please call the roll.
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
No.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 6 yeas, 1 nay.
Thank you, Lori. 6 affirmative votes approves Resolution 3771. Mr. Pepper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Faulkner wants to come forward. As you might recall, last week in the committee meeting, this next item came up, and we left off an important part of it that needs to be brought out and voted on tonight in addition to the other motion. Chief, will you explain why we're back here tonight instead of putting this on the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. This memo that you have before you is exactly the same one as you had last week. However, we inadvertently left off one of the funding streams, and working with finance, we have the funding stream added to it as a second motion on the memo. So you had the first motion that approves the low bidders for the conversions, the graphics, the electronics, and the dash mount radios. And then you have a motion for the levy court to approve that. That's what was approved last week. And this week we've added a motion, I'll just read it if you don't mind, move to approve $60,000 be transferred from the FY20 General Fund EMS Operational Budget 695.0 project-related expense to the Capital Project Fund as a source of funds for the EMS vehicles, conversions, and remaining project expenditures. And so that particular line is from, we had established a budget for the new building that we're construction, however, we're not there, so we're just borrowing funds from that.
Okay, any questions of Chief? Seeing none, then I'm prepared to make 2 motions, Mr. President.
Sure.
First motion, I move that the King County Levy Court approve the low bidders for the conversion of 2 suburban vehicles into emergency response vehicles to, number one, Magnum Electronics for $50,418.90. Number two, JD Signs for $2,100. And three, Motorola Solutions for a total of $3,747.16. That's the first motion.
You can also include the second motion in there, I believe.
All right, I will do so. And the second motion, I move to approve $60,000 be transferred from fiscal year 20 General Fund EMS Operation Budget 695.0 project-related expense to the Capital Project Fund as the source of funds for the EMS vehicles conversion and remaining project expenditures.
Second motion.
Thank you, Mr. Pepper and Mr. Angel, and that's a combined motion for the two numbers.
Yes.
You've heard them. Any questions in regard to the motion? Hearing none, Ms. Tanaka, please call the roll.
Mr. Angel?
Most definitely, yes.
Mr. Buxton? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
7 affirmative votes approves the motion as so made. Next item on the agenda are appointments. Mr. Buxton.
Thank you, Mr. President. My pleasure to make a motion tonight to appoint Delbert Mills to the Kent County Regional Planning Commission.
Second motion.
Ready to move to the second. Mr. Buxton and Mr. Pepper to approve Mr. Delbert Mills to the Regional Planning Commission. Any questions on that motion? Hearing none. Ms. Tanaka, please call the roll.
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes, good addition.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
7 affirmative votes approves the appointment as so made. Next appointment to the Kent County Board of Adjustment, Mr. Buxton.
Speaking of good additions, Mr. Mills served with distinction, moved on up the chain of command, and now serves on the RPC, and that leaves a vacancy on the Board of Adjustments that now will be filled hopefully by Morgan Hudson. So make a motion that we appoint Morgan Hudson to the Kent County Board of Adjustments.
Second motion.
Ready to move to the second of Mr. Buxton and Mr. Pepper to approve Morgan Hudson to the Kent County Board of Adjustment. Any questions on that motion? Hearing none. Ms. Tanaka, please call the roll.
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
If she has the passion of her grandfather, good addition. Yes.
Amen.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Motion in favor, 7-0 for Morgan Hudson to Board of Adjustment. Down to other business, item number 2, Mr. Pepper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to go into executive session immediately following the committee meetings of January 21st, 2020 for preliminary discussion on site acquisition for a publicly funded capital improvement, legal strategy session regarding collective bargaining or pending or potential litigation, and personnel matters pursuant to 21 Delaware Code 10,004 B24N9 is the motion.
Second motion.
Ready to move to the second by Mr. Pepper, Mr. Angel, on the executive session on January 21st, 2020. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, Ms. Tanaka, please call the roll.
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
7 affirmative votes, motion passes. Any any informational items, Mr. Pettimock? No. Any public comments? Any public comments? Sir.
All right. My name is Julian McCoy, and I live at 400 Camp Fortune Way in Harrington, which is, they call it Breeder's Crown. For the last 3 months, I have approximately 3 calls. I've had talk to Mr. Howell, and I'm not even for sure if I'm supposed to be talking to Mr. Howell, because I thought he was the commissioner in our district, but after looking at the map, I think Mr. Sweeney is.
Mr.
Is he?
It is me.
It says I'm 14.
Right here.
You
And I'll be
are?
glad to, more than happy to help you if you want to meet after this meeting or whatever it is,
Well,
but it is me.
The problem is, I'm going to go through this pretty fast. It all started back in June. We had somebody came down, I don't know who it was, and started walking around the whole property looking at all the swells and the stormwater drainage, the creek that we have. Approximately 2 weeks after that, somebody came back and started taking pictures, all kinds of pictures. Okay, and he said he was working to trying to get something done or reporting back to the engineer or to the commissioners. I don't know who he was reporting to. Okay, all right. Approximately 2 weeks after that, more people showed up from Kent County. Some showed up from Sussex County. Tree men showed up with the engineers and somebody. I guess they're trying to give bids on what to do with all the trees. Okay. All right. Once all this is done, the engineer said the work would start in early fall. So we thought that would be September. Then it was changed till October. Then it was changed till November. Then it was changed till December. And according to Mr. Howe, the report, the last discussion I had with him on the telephone, it's dead. We don't know when it's going to go. This is late in the spring. Now, let me tell you what the problem that we have there. I am the closest one, okay, to that from way those big trees that they've got to remove. Now, I measured them today. I'm 70 feet and 80 feet from 9 trees that are 90 feet to 100 feet tall. All right? We've already got one tree that just broke off. Just a small tree. The limb's been sitting there for the last 6 months, just hanging on. If we have any more terrible winds or anything that's really bad, all those trees, since we have most of the winds that come out of the northwest, the southwest, and the west, all those trees are going to hit my house, every single one of them. And not only that, all the vegetation that I have put in, I've only been there 2 years, but I have watched these trees grow tremendously in the last 2 years, especially over the last year. It's because we've had warm nights. We've had plenty of water. I've watched these trees grow over 30 feet in height and things this sort. But it's not that, it's the environmental too. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of mosquitoes that we have. I bought a sprayer, a powerful sprayer that you ride around with your mower, you hook up onto the battery that's supposed 20 feet. I spray that 2 or 3 times a year just to get rid of the mosquitoes and the ticks. But it's the danger that we're having now. And we lost all the little creatures that we had there. We had turtles. We had little black snakes, you know. We had lots of frogs. We had a little, that's gone. But the point is, why did they do all the work in the beginning and said they was going to do it and not do it? Which I'm lost. I don't know why. So does anybody have an answer?
I would like to, here's what I can assure you. Tomorrow I'll have you an answer. This is the first I've heard of it, but I will have an answer for you tomorrow, or at least I will call the right people and try to find that answer for you. That's the best I can give you tonight.
Someone must look at it with their eyes and not just get it reports from so-and-so and so-and-so. If you do not see it yourself, you're not going to know how bad it is. You know.
Understanding is there's the Kent Conservation District is now working with or under the Sussex Conservation District.
I understand that.
So we need a sense of urgency or priority maybe to get them back out into your area. I don't know the particulars, but I'm going to hand you my card and we're going to talk tomorrow and I'll see what I can do to find that out. Okay. But otherwise I'd be guessing unless someone else, Commissioner Howe may know more. I don't know.
Well, I'm sorry, because I talked to Mr. Howe. I only got upset because he didn't know where Breeders' Crown was, because now I can understand.
It's on 14, in case you're wondering.
Yeah,
I know all that now.
But I was told he was the one I was supposed to call.
Halfway between Hurton and Milford.
He gave me a sheet with your name on it. So, you know.
I'm really glad you came out, but I regret that you had to come out. All right. I did everything I could to reassure you that it was going to be taken care of. I don't know what additional phone calls would do, but I was told by the point man on this type of stuff that the crew that does this type of work is busy working on tack stitches, and they will not be able to get to your place until the spring. And, so what do I do with that? Pass it on to you.
Well, the last word I got from the engineer was, okay, the gentleman that was supposed to do the tree work had not finished on the last job, and he would be finished by November. So the HOA president of our little people in there's 62 of them, okay, 62 homes. He sent out a letter. They're going to be here November the 17th or November the 19th or something. I can't remember. Whatever. But again, nobody showed up. There was one person that showed up on the 19th of December, and he had a wheel, and he was measuring, and he had a sign on the truck, a landscape. So I went out and talked to him. I said, I'm going to do all this work. If they tear it up with equipment and everything of this sort, I'm going to do this work. So but he said, he's got to give a bid, okay. But that was the last I heard this until until you called me back. So,
Have a conversation.
Sure.
Do the best I can to help you.
Well, that's good. Thanks. Thank you.
Hey, Eric, nice to see you. Want to do it up front or you want to do it right here? I think we'll give it
Any commissioner comments? Mr. Hall?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Sorry?
Happy New Year to all you commissioners, and county commissioner, or administrator, and the new attorney. And also wish very luck to the new appointees. My name is Boyd White, 164 Winter Circle, Magnolia, Delaware. I've been coming here for many years. You all know that. I've been on various committees. I know quite a bit about the land use issues, and I think a recent opportunity has gone by me, but that's okay, because I think now it's time for me to seriously consider running for Levy Court Commissioner in District 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Boyd, for your time. Appreciate that. Any other public comments? Any other public comments? Seeing none. Any commissioner comments? I'm sorry, Mr. Sweeney.
Thanks, Mr. President. So Sunday, Mr. Pettimage and I had the opportunity to judge the Kent County 4-H public speaking contest, of which 3 of the contestants were 3 of Pepper's children's children. Didn't get to hear them speak because I was in the junior section, But I want to assure you, gentlemen, that all of the rhetoric that's going around about our kids and kids in the society today and being behind their little TVs and playing on their phones, if these kids that were speaking on Sunday have the opportunity to take over leadership roles, we are all in trouble because they are very, very well educated and very, very good. So, but it was a great event, like it is every year. Mr. Pettimonge, you agree?
Absolutely. Fantastic.
It was a good day.
Any other commissioner comments? Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the sake of the record, in addition to welcoming Mr. Mills to the Regional Planning Commission, I just wanted to think it's equally important to recognize the departure of his predecessor, Jean Thornton. Her questions were always insightful, her votes always fair, her knowledge of the ordinances was extraordinary, and she served the Commission's opinion leader for applications regarding animals and the environment, and I appreciate her 13 years of dedicated service to the county. Hopefully we'll formally recognize her service to our county as we did Mr. Holmes on his replacement.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Any other commissioner? Mr. Pettimonge.
Thank you, Mr. President. I should have mentioned this under other comments, but just want to remind the commissioners that this Thursday, is a busy day. We begin, for those of you that signed up, we have the economic forecast breakfast the Chamber puts on, 7:30 at Mapledale. And then in the evening at 5:30, we have the Association of Counties meeting at Frazier's. So we're bookending both the beginning and the end of the day with county business, and we appreciate your service. And lastly, just so no one gets out of here, after this meeting, we're adjourning into the caucus room for a workshop on the budget. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pettimonge. With that being said, we need a motion to adjourn to the workshop.
So moved.
Regularly moved and seconded by Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Pepper, and Mr. Angel to adjourn this meeting into our workshop on the budget. Any questions on that motion? Hearing none, Ms. Tanaka, please call the roll.
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. Buxton? Mr. President, roll call reveals 6 yeas, 1 absent.
6 affirmative votes moves us to the workshop and the caucus room.
Wendell, if you can come forth, please, I'd like to meet you.
Where did Hal